A BBC reporter got fired because of a Filipino guest. It all started when a Filipino woman named Laura Mendoza was invited on BBC News for a live morning interview. The topic was simple: how people in Asia use English differently. Nothing controversial, nothing political. Just a light talk about languages. But no one expected that this short interview would turn into one of the most embarrassing live moments in BBC history, and that the man who thought he was clever would end up losing his job. The show began as usual. Cameras rolled. The host, James Walker, smiled at the screen. Joining us this morning from Manila is Laura Mendoza, a linguist who studies how English is spoken across Asia, he said. Good morning, Laura. Laura smiled warmly. Good morning, sir. It's a pleasure to be here, she replied. Her English was clear, polite, and fluent, but her Filipino accent was noticeable. That's when it happened. James raised his eyebrows, leaned back in his chair, and suddenly began to laugh. Oh, I'm sorry, he said between chuckles. Your English sounds interesting. He laughed again, louder this time, unable to stop himself. The studio went quiet. You could almost hear the control room panic. Some staff tried to signal him to calm down, but he kept laughing, shaking his head. No, I just didn't expect that accent, he added, grinning. Laura stayed still. She didn't show anger. She didn't roll her eyes. She just smiled politely, waiting for him to finish. It's okay, sir. I understand my accent might sound different, but I assure you it works perfectly fine for communicating. James smirked again. Of course, he said sarcastically. But tell me, do people in the Philippines speak real English or your own kind of version? That one question changed everything. Even viewers at home felt the disrespect. Comments began appearing online within seconds. People wrote, "Did he just mock her on live TV?" And "That's rude." But Laura didn't lose her calm. She leaned forward slightly and said, "Sir, English is not owned by any one country. It belongs to everyone who uses it to communicate. In the Philippines, we speak it every day, in schools, offices, and even at home." James chuckled again, trying to make it funny. He said, "That's cute, but surely it's not the same as what we call native English. You must admit your pronunciation is quite different." Laura smiled again. "Different doesn't mean wrong," she said. "You have your way and we have ours. The goal of language is to understand each other, and that we do very well." The audience grew quiet again. Some clapped softly, but James, trying to save face, added, "Well, maybe one day you'll sound like a native speaker." This time, Laura looked him in the eyes and said, "Or maybe one day you'll learn that understanding matters more than sounding perfect." The room froze. Then, applause. Real, loud applause. Viewers online started posting, "She won that round," "Filipino pride," and "This woman just schooled him live." James forced a smile. "All right," he said awkwardly, "let's move on." But it was too late. The damage was done. The clip had already started spreading online. Within hours, it was everywhere: Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. By the end of the day, the headline was the same across all social media. BBC reporter laughs at Filipino guest, instantly regrets it. And that was only the beginning. Within just a few hours, millions had seen the video. It exploded across platforms. Filipino communities around the world shared it proudly. Even people who didn't know Laura felt proud of how she handled the insult. One tweet said, "She stayed calm, smart, and confident. That's the real Filipino spirit." Another said, "He laughed at her accent, but now the world is laughing at him." BBC's comment section was filled with messages calling the reporter arrogant and disrespectful. "She speaks better English than most," one user wrote. "You embarrassed yourself, not her," said another. By the next morning, BBC had received thousands of complaints. Several news websites picked up the story. BBC host under fire for mocking Filipino guest. Meanwhile, Laura remained silent. She didn't post anything, didn't react to the chaos. When reporters reached out to her, she simply said, "I believe the interview speaks for itself."
That quiet dignity only made people respect her more.
In the Philippines, TV stations replayed the interview non-stop. Teachers showed it to students as an example of confidence and respect. Talk shows praised her for standing her ground without losing composure. Even British viewers began to speak up. "As a Brit, I'm embarrassed," one wrote. She handled it with more class than he did. By day 2, the video had reached over 10 million views online. The BBC was forced to release a short statement saying, "We are reviewing the incident that occurred during our morning broadcast." But behind the scenes, things weren't looking good for James Walker. Sponsors began pulling ads from the morning show. Staff members reportedly said the atmosphere was tense. "He crossed a line," one producer admitted anonymously. Meanwhile, Lara received thousands of messages from people around the world. Many said her words gave them confidence to embrace their accent. "You made me feel proud to speak English my way," one message read. Others from India, Africa, and Latin America said they'd faced the same kind of mockery. Lara's calm response had become a symbol of strength for all of them. And as the video continued to spread, the BBC couldn't stay silent for long. 3 days later, they held a press conference. The network apologized publicly, saying, "We regret the unprofessional behavior displayed during our live broadcast. The BBC values cultural diversity and respect in all forms." And then came the big news. James Walker was suspended indefinitely. Social media exploded again. "He deserved it," many wrote. "Finally, some accountability." But the story wasn't over. Lara was about to speak again, and what she said next would make her an international name. After James Walker's suspension, the story didn't cool down. In fact, it got even bigger. People started making reaction videos on YouTube. Some replayed the exact moment James laughed. Others showed how calm Lara stayed while everyone else lost control. TikTok creators made short clips of her line, "Different doesn't mean wrong." That sentence became a quote, printed on shirts, shared in memes, and even used in schools. But while Lara's name grew in respect, James was hiding from the spotlight. His friends said he was shocked by how fast everything turned against him. One of his colleagues told the newspaper, "James thought it was just a joke. He didn't realize how rude he sounded on air." But to the audience, it didn't matter. It wasn't just a joke. It was a reminder of how accents are used to judge people unfairly. Then, BBC called Lara back. They asked her to join a follow-up segment, this time for an online discussion about language and respect. Many people thought she would refuse, but she agreed. When the day came, the online event was packed. Thousands of viewers tuned in live. The new host began by thanking her for joining. "Lara, the world has heard your story. What message would you like to give people who watched that interview?" Lara smiled softly and said, "We should never be ashamed of the way we speak. Our accent tells our story, where we come from, what we've learned, who we are. English isn't about sounding perfect. It's about being understood." Her words hit hard. People started commenting live. "Beautiful message. This woman speaks truth. Respect from Nigeria, love from India, and more." In just 15 minutes, that live stream had over 1 million views. The BBC host ended by thanking Lara again, saying, "You've reminded us all that respect comes before pride." Meanwhile, James Walker finally spoke publicly. He posted a message on X, formerly Twitter. "I want to sincerely apologize to Ms. Lara Mendoza and to everyone I offended. My behavior on air was unprofessional. I've learned a hard lesson about respect and humility." The post quickly went viral too, but not in the way he hoped. People replied, "You're only sorry because you got caught," and "Too late, mate." Still, others said at least he admitted his mistake. Some even wrote, "We forgive you, but learn from this." 2 days later, BBC made a final decision. They released a short but clear statement.
After reviewing the incident and public reaction, we have decided to end our professional relationship with Mr. Walker, effective immediately.
The post quickly went viral too, but not in the way he hoped. People replied, "You're only sorry because you got caught," and "Too late, mate." Still, others said at least he admitted his mistake. Some even wrote, "We forgive you, but learn from this." 2 days later, BBC made a final decision. They released a short but clear statement. After reviewing the incident and public reaction, we have decided to end our professional relationship with Mr. Walker, effective immediately. It was official. The reporter who once laughed at a guest on live TV had been fired, and the guest he mocked had become the voice of millions. Months passed, but the story never really faded. Clips from that interview were still being shared, especially in schools and language workshops. Many English teachers used it to show students that confidence matters more than accent. Lara's life changed completely. She was invited to speak at international conferences about language and culture. She even appeared on talk shows in America and Australia, where she talked about her experience. During one of those shows, the host asked her, "When he laughed at you, what were you thinking?" Lara smiled. "I thought, if I get angry, people will only remember the fight. But if I stay calm, people will remember the message." That line became another viral quote. People admired how she turned an insult into a powerful lesson. Soon after, Lara started a foundation that focused on helping young people feel proud of their voices and backgrounds. The foundation worked with schools in Southeast Asia, teaching students about communication and confidence. At the same time, James Walker kept a low profile. Some reports said he had left the UK for a while, others said he was writing a book about media and public mistakes. No one really knew. But every time his name came up, people remembered that one interview and how he lost everything because of arrogance. In the Philippines, Lara was celebrated. She became a local hero, not for fighting, but for showing grace. One local newspaper wrote, "She spoke with dignity when others would have shouted. That's real power." By the end of the year, Lara was invited to give a talk at a global education forum in Singapore. Thousands attended in person and millions watched online. Her speech was titled, "English Belongs to Everyone." In her speech, she said, "There's no single way to sound intelligent. There's no single accent for success. Language is a bridge, not a wall. The moment we start laughing at others for how they speak, we stop listening to what they're trying to say." When she finished, the entire room stood up to clap. It was a long, emotional applause. Many people were crying, not because the story was sad, but because it was inspiring. Back in the UK, even BBC executives mentioned her speech as a reminder of how much the world had changed. Some internal policies were updated to include new training for presenters about cultural respect and communication. The irony was clear. The woman once mocked for her accent had helped reshape how a major news network operated. Today, when people search BBC reporter Filipino guest online, they still find that video. The moment Lara turned laughter into silence and silence into respect. It's more than just a viral clip now. It's a story about understanding, confidence, and pride. As one comment perfectly said, she didn't raise her voice, she raised the standard. And that's how a normal morning interview turned into one of the most unforgettable lessons in TV history. A lesson that English isn't owned,